we're on. Kourosh, thanks for
My
coming
pleasure.
on, bro. How's it going?
My pleasure. Awesome, bro. How's it going for you?
Just finished a few back-to-back meetings, but
Nice.
overall good. Thanks for joining. I wanted to have this session to walk you through a set of questions, get your thoughts, have some interesting conversations going.
Let's do it, brother. Let's
So
do it. I'm excited.
we'll jump right into it. What is your favorite movie and why?
So my favorite movie is actually called Malena. It was by an Italian director, and Monica Bellucci plays in it. So that might be why. But the main reason is because it depicts this little boy that's going through his puberty stage, and it's like it shows how Italian culture sort of was, and it's really similar kind of to Persian culture because the way they grew up. Like for example, Italians wouldn't let like younger boys or younger teens or before they're teenagers to wear longer pants. Only men were allowed to wear long pants, and this boy had short pants. And then in throughout the movie, it's like things happen, and he like spies on the Monica Bellucci, which her name is Malena in the movie, and like she's really hot and everything. And the boy's like stunned by her, and then the whole neighborhood's like looking at her and everything. And like fights with him, they hit him, beat him, and like it's just like it's such a real like representation of like the purity stage. That's not what happened to me, but I mean, like a lot of us have these kind of thoughts in younger stages, and when we're younger, like the Freud thing where most boys at younger age they idealize their moms and everything like that. And yeah, like I saw a lot of that throughout the movie, and just like the visual imagery and everything was really nice. The soundtracks and like the sound musician who created all the soundtracks, Ennio Morricone, I think. He's one of my favorite classical musicians, and I love the notes and everything he does.
He's composed a lot of film scores.
Yeah.
He's pretty.
Yeah, it's really famous. He's really famous. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so the movie is called Malena, yeah.
Malena.
Yeah. Okay, I'll check it out. I haven't watched that actually.
Yeah, definitely you should watch it.
I mean, it kind of does sound like It's a Wonderful Life, but I maybe not. It does sound. It reminds me of that for some reason. Have you watched that one?
What's it called?
It's called It's a Wonderful Life.
I haven't seen that.
Okay, well, definitely take a look at that. That's a good movie.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a lot of movies, yeah, but I usually don't have favorites for much, but like, it's really hard to choose and pick. Like it's just you gotta appreciate the whole thing. Yeah.
It's like music, like the different moods that you have.
Exactly. Everything has a time and place. Everything. Yeah.
I agree. I don't have a favorite movie myself, but I mean, I have 10, maybe 10, 15 that I would like rank. But yeah, it's interesting though. I'll take a look at it. So what book would you recommend to a friend, a loved one, if you were to recommend?
Honestly, I'm not much of a book reader myself. I'm more of a audio learner and visual learner than like reading. But I listened to a few books by Yuval Noah Harari, and I think he's really famous. He's a New York Times bestseller since like 2018 or so. He has a few books: Homo Deus, Sapiens, and 21 Rules for the 21st Century. And I listened to all three of those. I think they give a really good perspective of the society as of how it is today and where we're going in the future and how we got here. It's like a good brief historical background. It gives you a really good understanding of like the history of mankind, about businesses, about how society is made up and how people interact and why we interact in such ways and why we've evolved in this way. And it's interesting to me to see like the evolutionary root of things and the historical purpose it has had in our lives throughout decades and centuries. So yeah, I think he's a really good author. He really expresses it in a clear and to the point kind of way.
Yeah, I've actually seen some of his interviews as well. One of them was with Natalie Portman in Google.
Yeah, I think he came on BBC even. BBC Persian even brought him on. Yeah.
I don't watch a lot of BBC in general. I don't trust them. But
yeah,
I do appreciate Yuval Noah Harari. And tell me about this. You said that you don't read a lot, but you listen to more like podcasts and let's say audiobooks. So how is that? Because I feel like when I read, it's a lot easier. You got the text in front of you, and you're taking your time with it. Whereas when you're listening, it's kind of like that information absorption. It's weird dynamics, right? How do you learn with that? Is it Is it good?
I think it's just when you listen to things, it's your attention span. I think I'm used to like I can listen to stuff faster than I read. When I read fast, I either lose attention or forget what I read at the first of the beginning of the paragraph, and I have to read it over again. And then sometimes you just lose track of what happened and whatnot. But when you listen to it, it's kind of gets hacked into your brain and you remember it more specifically. That's how it works for me, whether it's academics or just general reading, whatever. I just find it more comfortable to listen to stuff, and
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot faster for sure.
And I feel like it's also really more convenient. That's why podcasts, like I feel like podcasts weren't even a thing like 10 years ago or so. Like it's recently become really popular because I feel like it's more like accessible and convenient for people. Like you can reach out to a larger audience through
Well, not
audio.
only that, but you can also, when you're listening, you can do a lot more things,
Yeah,
along the way while you're listening.
exactly.
Driving.
Exactly. Like you can't read a book while you're driving, but like you just hook up your phone to the car and you there you go. It's all good.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's one benefit of it for sure. So okay, that's three books, three solid books. I really recommend it as well. It's a good choice. Now, what is your current ikigai?
My Ikigai, that's the Japanese kind of purpose, right?
Yeah, it means
The
a reason
purpose for
for
life.
being. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a question. I think it's a really good question. I've thought about it ever since I can remember I was a kid. I've always thought about it. And when you're a kid, you're so much in like the climax of happiness, and you don't really worry about anything. You don't really think about it that deeply. Although it comes to your mind, for me, it was like that. You're just so engaged in like having fun and being in the moment, and everything's exciting and spontaneous, and you don't really think about it that much. But as you grow up, older and older, you start thinking about it more deeply, and you start to reminisce about why we're here, what's the meaning of us being here, what kind of purpose do I want to bring from my life. Like you start thinking about creating family, and passing on what other generations gave to you. My dad always used to say this. He would say, others planted the seeds for us to harvest, now we have to plant the seeds for the next generations to harvest.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the whole, like it's like that cycle and that continuity of time and energy that gives purpose to why we're here. Like if we were to be here alone on this planet, like if you were alone, then nothing would be meaningful to you. The reason that there is meaning to our life is because there's other people. And I'm not saying that like we should be constantly comparing ourselves with others and like that's why we're here, but like the very competition that exists naturally between us people is what's driving us forward and leading us to more success and motivates us to do better every day. And yeah, that I think without other people on the planet, there would be no meaning. So I think the whole point of us being like our purpose for life is to connect with others in the best way possible and to progress as much as that we can, whether if it's in our local circle or in our local community or even on a larger scale. Well, some people reach it on a global scale, but some people you got to start from like the local circle or smallest circle that you can. We'll just do whatever you can. That's what I find pleasing for me. That's what gives me ease.
That's a good point, man. I feel like everyone is, at least in nowadays today's age, and with the young generation, especially like our generation, we're stuck in moments, and we put a lot of value on just having fun and
Yeah,
enjoying moments, and then just it just ends there. But then, like you said, there should be a bigger purpose, because that's what would give your
yeah,
life meaning. And what your father said about, let's say, the harvesting and giving on, passing on to the next generation, I think that in and of itself, like that responsibility is what gives you a sense of purpose.
exactly. And I feel like it's so true that most people are looking for fun and everything these days because it's become so commonplace to think like, what's the easy path and just do what makes you happy. And it sounds so simple, like they don't emphasize the part that like you got to struggle for that. You got to be willing to struggle. Like struggling should be enjoyable. You have to love the process, not just the goal. And we've heard these motivational speeches like over and over again, like saying the same things, and it's just become so common. Like it's hard for anybody to actually focus on the struggles and hardships and the small things that are part of the process, because we're so annoyed so easily. It's become easy to dismiss everything because everything's become so convenient. We're used to it. Like we order Amazon Prime, it's got to be same day delivery. in 10 years, they're probably going to know what you want to order before you even order it. You know, it's going to be
They'll read your
prime
mind.
today, prime now. It's going to be prime now, not even today. It's going to be prime now, right by your door right now. You know, just real
Yeah,
quick.
that's basically the intersection of biotech and infotech, like Yuval talks
Yeah.
about all the time. You know.
Yeah. I feel like this integration with AI is making our lives easier and kind of more vague and confusing at the same time, because it has its perks. Definitely, I'm for technology and all that, but we gotta find a way to not lose our actual self and not go too far away from our nature and what we actually are. Like, you know, like we have I think Elon Musk just gave us the Neuralink, right?
Mhm.
Which they say in like, but where right now they're using it on like epilepsy patients or patients who have chronic situations in order to like give them nerve regeneration and to rehabilitate them basically. I feel like in the long span, that's useful, but like if they reach a point where they're gonna, for example, in Yuval Noah Harari's book, he says in the Homo Deus that we become half robots and half human, and our lifespan might even extend.
Yeah.
Then if our lifespan extends from, let's say right now, like 80 years, 100 years to like 150 years, then the basic definitions of everything are going to change following that, you know? And that's why I'm saying like it becomes sort of vague, like our existence and the clarity of our existence kind of becomes confusing at that point.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned like what Yuval said in Homo Deus, because at this point, I feel like we're already cyborgs as well. Like we're connected to these devices, basically our mobile
Exactly.
phones, that's connected to a source of infinite information, right? So we
Exactly.
already have quick access to a lot of things, and this is just going to continue to propel forward. And like you said, you know, at some point become half robot, half human. That's it's a double-edged sword for sure. It's a double-edged sword,
Yeah.
technology. So, what new skills are you trying to learn right now?
Um, Honestly, I'm trying to solidify my basic skills. I like to learn new things every now and then because I hate routine. Like I hate monotony, and I like every day to be something new. But at some point, you got to learn that you need to have some routines. You know, there needs to be new things just because it's exciting and intriguing to discover and explore your new parts of your personality and capabilities. But you got to stick to some routines as well,
Mhm.
because that's what keeps you on track and on schedule. And I feel like everybody needs those basic routines as much as I feel like in a lot of like our mainstream media, they're like, oh no, we can't have routines, and like, you know, it's too boring and this and that, like every day you have to do something new. But like, yeah, there's got to be a balance to it, you know. I think everything needs a balance. You got to try new things. Like I'm trying to I got into stocks for this quarantine. I think made a lot of stuff resurface for people, and they discovered like new things. And then for me, it was maybe stocks, and I started reading a lot of psychology articles and philosophy articles, just going through them in my spare time. And I feel like that was really enjoyable for me, even though I wasn't like practically or physically doing something new, but you know, just stimulating your mind in new ways. That's also really interesting for me. Other than that, yeah, I'm into doing new sports. I tried beach volleyball, paddle boarding. I don't know, all kinds of sports. I'm down for any sport. I like sports most than
That's
anything.
cool, man. Good for you. And you know,
Yeah,
going back to what you said about routine, it's very important. You need that little bit of chaos in your everyday life. You know, that in the amidst the order that you've created. But without that
absolutely.
order, without that structure, you know, you can't really have a clear expectation and anticipation of what's coming towards you.
Yeah,
So that's why that
yeah,
routine, that structure is very
yeah,
important. And you know what you said about the quarantine, and I think ironically the quarantine has been good for a lot of people as well. Obviously for many people it's been bad, they lost their jobs, they got sick, and that's terrible. But for some people, or for at least the people that I've been speaking to, they've also gained a lot from it, you know, just having
yeah.
that time to rethink through.
Reassess your position on things. Yeah.
Exactly, time to reflect, time to learn new things, which is definitely good.
What have you
So
done new?
what?
I'm sorry, I shouldn't ask you questions, right? I'm like,
Oh,
what have you
go ahead.
done
No,
new?
no.
Okay.
There's this free flow, man.
What are the new things have you done though?
In quarantine, so one thing that really stands out is I started this program called the Insanity Challenge. I don't know if you know about it. So
I haven't heard.
it's an body weight exercise program, and the
Nice.
reason I started that was because the gyms were closed, so I couldn't really go
Mm.
into lift. So basically, I got this, program from a friend, and I started doing it. Actually, got a lot more fit, and working from home, it gave me the time to like spend with my family, be able to sit down, read, reflect, do these sorts of things, which I found, very, very useful. Plus, getting into stocks, like you said, just being
Yeah.
able to understand more about the market and be able to like understand how to get successful investments and how to be able
Yeah.
to model your thought process in such a way that you're able to actually like
Yeah.
think through what a successful investment would look like, right? But
I,
the main
I
thing,
agree. I agree. I think the quarantine really had a major impact on us like valuing our health because we had nowhere to go. We were in the
yeah,
house. I think people were going crazy at some point. Everything closed, all the gyms closed, and you just got to get out there. You do your thing. I ordered a bunch of equipment too, just doing workouts at home. And I think it's really helpful, even starting like yoga and stuff like that. Just taking some time to yourself. Because like I feel like when the gyms and everything were there, like during the year I went to university and we had access to like 4 gyms, right? And I wouldn't use a single one of them because I always knew it's there, and I was like, okay, I have other stuff to do, and
for
I basically
granted, yeah.
prioritize that stuff, right? But like when it's not there and you're just at home and you're just like I have to do something, I have to get out of this triangle, I have to try something new. I think that really pushed us in a good direction in that way.
Yeah, we definitely did take it for granted. I mean, I used to go to the gym, but it wasn't as consistent as when quarantine started and I was starting to do this
Yeah.
program, which I really appreciate. Um, so what's your biggest fear?
My biggest fear. Um, I've thought about this question a lot too. I think in general, a lot of people have different fears, but they're somehow all at some point interconnected towards death. And I think everybody is somehow in some way, and even whether it's directly connected towards death or it's indirectly connected towards us, like for example, let's say something causes you isolation or a fear of rejection, which causes isolation, and then isolation leads to death, like, or I don't know, for example, yeah, anything like disease, suffering, suffocation, like all these stuff are like I like claustrophobia, like I think these all are things that would at the end lead to death. But at this point, I'm not thinking about death as my biggest fear. I think my biggest fear is to not be able to reach my fullest potential and to be uh, regretful in 10 years and feel like I've settled down,
Mhm.
for what I didn't want. I think that's for young guys my age. I think that's a big problem. Like a lot of us are like that, and we fear like we're not gonna reach the level that we want, and later on we're gonna regret it. But yeah, if you're just talking about basic fears, like yeah, I'm scared of cockroaches, spiders. It all leads to
Well, basic fears that everyone has, but I see what you're saying with not reaching your full potential, because that in and of itself leads to a lot of regret down the road. You know.
Yeah, no, I mean like our biggest fear is obviously something that's related to our purpose, but I feel like we all have that, like the basic fears like spiders and cockroaches or whatever it is. Those are somehow wired all in us because they're like anything that's like scary or like abnormal to us kind of gives us an existential kind of alarm, an existential threat, and I feel like that's why for everybody like isolation, being alone is a really big fear for a lot of people at least. But
It
yeah,
is,
for me
and
the biggest fear is
it makes you depressed as well, man.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, like being alone all the time, not socializing or being exposed to human beings. That the pheromones that we release when we're like in touch with other people, that actually
yeah,
increases the longevity of our lives. That's
yeah, bro,
important. So that's
yeah.
that's also another thing for sure. So how do you deal with, obviously talking about fears, how do you deal with your insecurities in general?
I think Jordan Peterson has a really famous book called The 12 Rules for Life, and he actually doesn't specifically state this in his book, I think, but Jordan Peterson has a lot of podcasts and things on YouTube I listen to, and he says that he says a story about that Carl Jung basically wrote, and it's about this monster and facing a whale, and it sounds really metaphorical at first, but when he talks about the meaning of it, says this phrase by Carl Jung. I think it's called Inster Quilinis Invenitur. I know you didn't get anything of that, but in English it means in filth it shall be found. And by that he means that in order to find light and success, you need to reach into the darkest parts of your fears. You need to face your fears. You need to go into the filth. You know, where it's always the answer is going to be where you least expected and where you're least willing to look for it. That's why they say in filth it shall be found. And I think that's a really strong phrase, because for me at least it has had a lot of impact. And I've always tried to face my fears, whether it's from basics, social fear of meeting somebody, like for example an interview or whatever. I feel like you just got to face it. You just got to be like 1 2 3. You got to have the 1 2 3 rule, and then just do it. You know, Nike, just do it. Because if you overthink stuff and you know procrastinate on it, or you overthink it, it's just you're gonna be more and more scared of it, and you're never gonna be able to face it, and it's just gonna get bigger and bigger for you. I think that's the best way to face it. You just have to go
That's
straight into the devil's. Yeah,
that's very true, man. And something else that Jordan Peterson always says is, you know, you gotta slay the dragon while it's small, because
exactly,
if you let it
exactly.
grow, then it's gonna destroy your house, you know. So
I think that applies to like your basic attitudes and your personality as well. Like I feel like a lot of us in our teenage years, we're shaping our personality and the way we interact with others. And we all know we have some good qualities and some bad qualities. And I feel like we got to get rid of these bad qualities that we see in ourselves as soon as possible, because the older we get, the harder it is to take them off of us, and they might as well become permanently shaped into our character. And then we can't get rid of them at that point. We can only pretend on the surface and try to hide it as much as possible. Let's say
yeah,
somebody's really angry. If you don't practice getting rid of your anger at young age, you're going to be an angry person when you grow up. Like if you have, I think whatever basically personality traits and character we have at young age, whether it's positive or negative, it's going to stay there, and it's going to exaggerate when we grow up, whether it's in a positive form or a negative form. So it's better to have positive qualities when you're younger, so these positive qualities become highlighted and more bold when you grow up, rather than negative qualities, because it's going to be just hard to get rid of. You can't do anything about it at that point.
that's a good point. Yeah, and so the negative qualities that you're talking about, how do you get rid of them? So the first step is obviously to be aware of them, right? But then where do you
Yeah.
go from there?
Well, I feel like for example, for anger, right? A lot of us grew up in different kinds of families. Or actually, wait, let me talk about something else, not anger. I'm personally, I'm really indecisive. Okay. I feel like even still, I have problems with sometimes making critical choices, or even if it's not an important choice, like really basic choices, like for example, ordering one monitor or another monitor on Amazon, for example, let's say. Okay, and I'm like, which one do I order? Like, it's the biggest problem in the universe, you know? Like, I'm just indecisive. I'm just naturally indecisive. I can't make up my mind, and I feel like this comes from a lot of things that some of them are not in our hands. And for me, I'd say maybe it's because my parents might have been a little bit overprotective when I was a kid, and I was used to them making all the choices for me till some point. And at some point, I started becoming more and more independent. Let's say like starting after like grade 10 or so, I would go out to my classes myself. I would go out everywhere. I would do all my own stuff. I would start applying to university by myself. I do, you know, I'd move out. And first year I came to Canada, I was in university alone, doing everything alone, you know. And you start becoming more independent, and then you start having to, you're faced with the reality that you do have to make choices for yourself, and you're the one that's going to be standing there at the end of the day facing the consequences of those choices. So like somebody like me might come from like a family that, like, of course my parents wanted the best for me, and no parents are the perfect parents, right? But our parents all love us, and they want the best for us, and they do the best of their abilities and their best knowledge. So my parents might have been a little bit overprotective, and that might have stayed on to me, right, till like even now. And I'm still working on it, you know. It's like it takes time. I can't say like it's something that you fix overnight, you know, because these things have been embedded into you over time, and it also takes time to take them away. And you got to practice no matter how hard it is to make these choices or whatever. You have to just face the reality. You shouldn't be afraid. You gotta let go of your fears and just be confident. You gotta keep telling yourself that. You gotta make yourself believe that you're confident and you can make good decisions, you know. Because if you're not good with yourself and honest with yourself, if you don't love yourself, you can't make any good decisions, because you're going to be afraid of yourself more than anything else, you know?
Yeah, man, that's really true. That's really true. That's a good point. So, what are some red flags for you in relationships?
In relationships, are you talking about like a first date or?
It can be, an intimate relationship or even a friendship. Anything that you would see as a red flag. Yeah.
You know, I would give you. I have a few answers, but I'm not sure which one's the best answer because I myself, I literally have dated one girl. I've met one girl and we've been together for 4 years since. So I haven't had really like much relationship experiences, but I guess if I were to meet someone new, I
That
would look
in, and,
for,
in and of itself, that's a huge experience. People's relationships
yeah,
won't last
yeah, I
more than a
think,
month.
yeah, I know. I mean, like it really depends on the expectations of both sides of who they are and where do they see themselves going with that relationship, like, um, I think the if you guys are really thinking about being serious, you got to be careful about that person's values.
Hmm.
I'm not saying like get political on the first date, but just like basic values, like are they as conservative as you are? Are they as easygoing as you are? Are they as organized as you are? Like, because those things after a while they become things that you pay attention to. Like, is this person as organized as I am? Is this person like does this person procrastinate more than me or less than me? Because like your plans with that person, if you're going to be spending a significant amount of time with that person, you have to find a way for your plans and their schedule like and you to not interfere in a bad way, and they have to coincide together. So you got to have some common values in that sense of your sense of time, punctuality, organization, spending, how you manage. You got to see if they think as long term as you think, or do they think more short term than you think? Because people live differently and people have different values. So it's not bad or good. It's just do they match your values or not? Other than that, I think I really care whether somebody is like really self-centered or self-obsessed with themselves, because I know like some girls are like I don't blame it on girls at all, because I feel like girls are wired like that, because like I have a sister and ever since she was younger, like for example, they're used to getting compliments, so it's not really like that for guys, like actually you can't really say that, like it depends on the type of family, but I'm saying in general, like girls are used to getting compliments more often, whether it's from their friends or family. I'm not
I
even
get
talking
it.
about family, but like girls are always expecting to receive something, but guys it's not like that. Like for a guy, if you sit at home, your friends are not just going to call you. Like you got to reach out to people, you got to reach out to people if you want to make connections, if you want to do stuff, and you got to build those connections of you got to initiate it, it's
Yeah.
the initiation part that's different, for like girls, like yeah, some girls initiate it too, like it depends again on how you grew up, how your father or fatherly figure was in your family. I feel like a lot of girls associate a lot of stuff to their father and treat other people the same way. um Other than that, what else can I think of? If a girl, for example, we go on a first date and she wants to go like all out, I don't know, get like the most expensive stuff on the menu. Not that I really care. Like, of course, I would take them to like a place that I'm comfortable getting anything on the menu. But, and it's not that I would like, it's not like a major red flag, but it's like these things add up. It's just
I
like
see.
small
Yeah.
things add up, like maybe somebody's just like a really good person and like they just felt like getting a steak that night, and it's the most expensive thing. I'll be like, okay, like, you have so many good qualities. Like, I don't care, but like if it keeps adding up, I'm like, okay, this person is like really self-obsessed, like they don't really care about what others think, they don't really value other people, they don't really want to hear you out, and they just do what they think is best. Like that's, I think, I'm not a selfish person myself, and I can't like be with a person who's really selfish. That's probably the
Yeah.
major red flag for me. Yeah,
That's fair, man. Basically, anything that you would think in the long run is going to disturb the harmony of that
exactly.
interaction or that relationship is something that's a red flag for sure. Um, if you were to have lunch with someone, dead or alive, who would you have lunch with?
Dead or alive? um that's a really hard one.
So basically, it doesn't matter. Anyone
That's
you want to have lunch.
because let's say if I bring them back a lot for example, let's say I bring Albert Einstein, I'm not going to be able to talk to him about his theories of relativity. I'm not the right person for that.
Yeah, yeah.
But if I were to just have lunch with someone who's alive that I can have lunch with and have a decent discussion with, uh, I'd probably go for somebody who won like the Nobel Peace Prize. Like I don't know, Nelson Mandela. Well, he's dead, but
That's
actually, you know
cool.
what? A comedian. I'd go with a comedian. I would want to get a really good laugh, like Chris D'Elia. You know, I'd want to talk to Chris D'Elia about what just happened with his career, and uh,
He's
where
cool.
like he's a really interesting guy. I think he's really funny. I don't
Yeah,
know.
he has a couple of good specials on Netflix too. Yeah, he's
I
cool.
went from Nelson Mandela to Chris D'Elia.
Chris
That's
D'Elia,
pretty cool.
yeah. Even he would roast you for that, you know? It's like, dude,
Yeah.
me over Nelson Mandela? What the hell are you doing, bro? Like,
Yeah.
okay, that's
You know,
cool.
you need a good laugh at these times, man. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
no,
hard times.
laughing is important,
You want to get a good laugh.
for sure. No, I appreciate a good laugh. Um, what do you think is the most important invention of, the past 15 years?
Past 15. When was the internet discovered? That was, no, that's like 70, 80 years, right?
Well,
Uh,
I would say like late 90s. That's cheating though.
well, I
That's
mean,
really,
like social media is like pretty much the past 15 years, right? We didn't have emails back in the 2000s, right? Like emails were starting back in the 2000s. So like I think social media is like the biggest invention we've had because it really gets all of us integrated, and I think it has like the most impact on how our society operates these days because like like it's really integrated with politics, and I think people have found it as the most convenient way to express themselves and to be heard, like for their voice to be heard. So I think it has a really major impact on us. Yeah,
okay.
social
Social
media.
media. That's cool. Yeah, man. Social media has definitely formed society in a way, like good or bad. I don't know. Really, I'm not sure. Personally, I
We're
would
losing.
think
Yeah,
bad, but you know, it's up for discussion. But it's definitely formed society. That's for sure. And like
yeah.
you said, it's embedded itself
Why
into
would you
a lot
say
of
it's
different
bad though? Why
habits.
would you say it's bad?
Social media.
Yeah. In what way was it bad?
I mean, let's just like be specific, right? Like we look at Instagram, for example, because Instagram is a social media, right? Like it
Yeah.
replaced Facebook, and now let's say the newer generation might be using TikTok or Snapchat or whatever it is. But I think the fact that you're always able to consume other people's lives, because we're basically products on social media, and the
Yeah.
fact that we're able to constantly have access to other people's lives and also be
Yeah.
judged for the way that we're living based on the number of likes we get, based on the feedback, based on all of the interactions. I think that in and of itself urges people to create this double identity where you
Yeah.
have your character and then you have your persona. And your character is who you really are, and then your persona is who you portray yourself to be on social media. And
Yeah.
that kind of like dissonance between the two creates a weird dynamic, man. Not to say that it hasn't been beneficial, but I'm just thinking like depression, comparing yourself to others, feeling like you're being judged based on how you look or what you do or how fun you appear to be, things
I
like
think
that.
like are you talking about this like across multiple generations, like the generation X, Y, Z, millennials, whatever. Like I think it affects them differently, like for example, they say our parents' generation is the one who watches TV the most. They're not really much on their social media. They don't really know how it works. Um, for us, it probably came out at the time we were entering high school. Um, and for the generation like my cousin who's like 10 years younger than me, they've had it since like elementary or middle school.
Mhm.
um and I think it really affects people differently, but like for adults, I think at the end of the day it's your choice how you manage your social media. But like I do agree that for like younger teenagers and kids, it can be really tempting and kind of have that like double identity kind of persona and all that. Um it, it's it's more exaggerated in them, I think, than for us. But even for us, I think it has had a great impact on like how we've spent our time. I know, like even myself, like the fact that we have to put limits on how long we can use Instagram just shows how addicted we are to it. No matter how we think, I know like my girlfriend sometimes she says like, oh, I'm smarter than that, like I don't get addicted to it, like I know how they try to like pull you in and like their advertisements or this and that. And I'm like, yeah, but the thing is like they know that you think you're smarter than them. Therefore, they're smarter than you. You know, like at the
Exactly.
end of the day, and at the end of the day, you're the one shopping like 8 hours on like Fashion Nova, or like, you know, going on Instagram on looking all these models and everything. And like, you know, sometimes you try to take a break, like you deactivate it for like a week, and then you come back to it, and it's, again, you're back at it. You know, like you got to check it in the morning, check it at night. I even leave my phone out of the room sometimes, but then again, I go back to it. You know, like, even, I think it's like that. It's not just social media that's like that, but like gaming too. Like I probably sold my last gaming console like when I came out of high school, and I'm so glad I haven't went back to gaming, because it would be such a waste of time, and it's such like a virtual reality. Like gaming is even more virtual than social media, because like social media is like this virtual thing online about actual humans, but like gaming is completely like a completely virtual world. And like if you're not going into like becoming a professional gamer, like, you know, like I know a lot of guys my age that are still addicted to gaming and play like Xbox and everything, like hours and hours, and like I don't get it, you know.
Yeah.
But social media, it's at least at the same time that it's become addicting, it's making it much more convenient to reach out to some people. And for example, if somebody's like trying to hire somebody that's right for the job, they don't have to be, for example, like 50 years back, they would have to post it in the newspaper, and only somebody in like a 5 mile radius would show up. But like right now, they can literally find the best person, the best fit person, and like thousands of miles away, you know. Like I
Yeah,
think
no,
it's
no,
just,
definitely. Like if you talk about the good sides or the benefits, then, you know,
yeah,
the
but
fact
it
that we're
should be controlled, and I think everything should be moderated. Like it
yeah,
definitely needs some moderation. Yeah.
definitely, and the fact that we're able to share information and show uh, unbiased. I mean, everything is biased, but the fact that we're able to share information so quickly and able to understand other people's world as fast as we do now is definitely something that's a positive, right? So,
Absolutely.
okay, what are you excited about for the future? What about the future excites you?
Um, the unpredictability of the future, and I feel like it gets more and more unpredictable for me as technology is advancing faster and faster. Like, who would have thought we would be here like 20 years ago? And like, you know, you have this image of like flying cars and like, you know, everything like that. And then Elon Musk comes and says, that's not even possible. Like, we're going to make underground tunnels. What about a flying car? Because, you know, like you can't really envision what the future is actually going to look like. But the whole like excitement about it is that you can't really predict it. And you don't know what's coming for you. You just got to be doing what you think you're going to love and what you're going to stick to. Because like, I'm afraid that like a lot of jobs are going to be taken away
Hmm.
by machines and robots, right? And I think a lot of jobs that, like, for example, I think they're replacing cashiers and like truck drivers and all that. But there's jobs that are like, for example, nursing, or like I don't know, jobs that like require actual care are probably the jobs that are going to be taken away the latest, because they
Yeah,
require actual care. You know, they require in-person care. Sometimes like a robot can't do that. And I think just like all this unpredictability is really exciting for me about the future, and like not knowing what path is going to be like the best path, but you know, just doing it anyways because it's what you love. You just got to follow what
yeah,
you love.
and just having that cognitive, at least practicing that like cognitive flexibility to be able to learn new things, right? Like learning how to
Yeah.
learn will be a big skill in the future, right? Because there's
Or
constantly like
like, for example, how much we would have to adapt to technology like
exactly, yeah,
ourselves. Like,
yeah,
for example, I see like my uncle like learning about Bitcoin and like putting a course about it, and I'm like, I don't even know anything about Bitcoin. Like, I haven't even delved into it at all. I never went into it. And I'm like, if I'm like 50, would I be capable of like learning some like new technology like that easily? And like, would how well would I be able to adapt when everything's going so fast? Like, how well are we going to be able to adapt to that? That's what is like
that's important.
my biggest question
That's
about the
cool.
future.
So do you have any questions for me?
Um, why did you make this podcast, and where do you think you're gonna go with this podcast?
So okay, so why did I make it? I enjoy having conversations, right? I think that um, we get so stuck in our own worlds. Everyone is doing their own day-to-day thing, and busy with life, that we don't get to pause and actually like have some meaningful, nice, interesting discussions. Get to know other people, get to know what's going on in their minds, and have some insightful, meaningful conversations, basically. So that's the reason. And then where do I think I'm going? So this podcast is a project, right? It's not something that is going to continue in the very long term, right? I might come up with a different format, but this whole like back and forth with the questions and having these discussions, I think that I'm gonna do around 10 or 11 episodes, and then I'm gonna stop it, and then onto a new project, right? So this is not something that's constantly gonna continue. And I think it's better that way. I feel more
Do you
comfortable
wanna?
that way.
Do you think you're gonna try to change any norms, any thoughts that people have with this? What thoughts do you think you're gonna be trying to target specifically, and like people like what people think that you think should not be like that, and you're trying to change that? Are you trying to like put out any kind of values and ideology for
No,
people?
no, no,
Like
not really.
who's
I'm
your
not.
main audience? Who's your main audience for this? Like
My my main audience would really be people who are also like-minded in terms of, okay, basic. That's a very good question. I
because
think
I know
that
you're a really spiritual person, and
I mean, yeah, I try to be, and I think that my audience would be people who are open-minded, but who are also curious. I think curiosity is a very important and good thing to have, and people who are willing to listen to other people's perspectives and be open to at least not accepting it, but at least seeing the perspective of others and understanding where they're coming from. That's very important, and that's a skill that I'm always trying to, improve on, which is empathizing,
absolutely.
understanding other people, right?
That shows how humble you are, that you haven't figured it all out, like you have time to learn. So no matter how much we grow up, we still have time to learn. We got to be curious. If we're not curious, we're going to lose the ability to catch on to new things.
What do 100%? I think if you're not curious, you'll die. Not physically, you won't die physically, but you'll die
Yeah,
mentally.
you got to
Uh,
keep it stimulating. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And to your question, what am I trying to change? I don't think I'm trying to change anyone's ideology. I don't think that at this point in my life, I'm at a place where I want to be thinking about changing people. I want to be in a place where I firstly understand myself, and once I do that, and that's a continuous process, anyways. But once I do that, be able to form meaningful connections with people, have
Yeah.
meaningful discussions, and if something pops out from there, then it will.
Well, what I meant by change ideology is not necessarily like change people's like political value or something
Yeah.
like that. I mean, like, I think this is a really good like a really good chance to say some words that me and you, when we were younger, would have wanted to hear from somebody like
Of
our
course,
age right
of
now.
course.
I think that's like a really good. We can be really good mentors, for example, through this kind of podcast.
100%, man. And what you said about, let's say, fear, like let's say 30 minutes ago when we were talking about it, is you're always going to have fear, and understanding that everyone is fearful or afraid of something, but you got to be conscious of it and just go for it. You said Nike, right? Just do it.
Yeah.
That's very important, man. I heard this a lot before, even when I was younger, but it
Yeah.
definitely helps when you see other people, even
Yeah,
ones.
it doesn't sink in and doesn't sink in. Like,
Exactly.
and a lot of these motivational stuff, you feel like you've heard it all before, but sometimes you hear it out of the right person's mouth, and it sinks with you. It actually gets engraved into you, and you actually start to believe in it, and that causes a change in your behavior. This is like, we read about this in psychology, that like, you have stereotypes. Okay, these are all ideas. Stereotypes are ideas. Your thoughts are ideas. They all come from your brain, right? And stereotypes are just thoughts when they're in your head. But once you start believing in them, and you start, like, for example, a stereotype about Black people, for example, like, if somebody just has stereotypes about Black people being really like criminal or whatever, they're not going to show any change in behavior. But if they start to believe in it and they start discriminating, that's a behavioral action. Like, it comes into their behavior. It's not just like in their mind. When it comes into their behavior, then that person is racist. That shows that person is like, that person believes in that ideology, is not just thinking about it.
Yeah, man, 100%. And people see stereotypes as something, at least in recent days, it's had a very negative twist to it. But I think stereotypes are actually like useful at some point, because they're like cognitive shortcuts for us, right? Because we can't always analyze every single information that's out there, right? So what we do
Yeah.
is we create little stereotypes, like patterns that we see, and sometimes that might lead to some bad places. We don't want to do that, but in the general sense, stereotypes are not necessarily bad, right?
Yeah. And to add on to your question about fear, I think a lot of us fear about not knowing stuff. And it's really hard for me, for example, like some people are better at this than others. Like they start something, they do a basic amount of research and they're like, okay, the other stuff that I don't know, I'll just learn it on the way. But I'm not like that. Like I have to research everything and know everything before I start, because like the level of risk taking that people have is different, you know. And I feel like the fear of not knowing has always been a problem for me to, and I've just tried to, like, as soon as I hear something new from somebody, I'm like, oh, where did you hear that from? Where did you get that from? You know, you try to catch on to it so quick, you know. And I
Phone.
feel like that's like, you just want to know. You know, have you seen the Indiana Jones movie where
No.
the woman goes like, becomes an alien basically, and her head explodes because she knows so much. Like,
Oh, okay.
uh,
I haven't watched it, but
yeah,
I can see
you should
what
watch
you're saying.
that.
Interesting.
But yeah, I feel like another fear I have is like categorizing stuff. I feel like we're wired to categorize everything as soon, like, because it makes everything simpler. You know, like ever since like when I was in high school, I always thought like, how do people decide, for example, back in Iran, if they want to study math or biology? Because we had to pick like a, what's it called, a specialty, right? And like
Yeah.
high school, I believe in Iran, they choose like a specialty, like math, I don't know, sciences or arts, right? And or humanities. And I was like, how do you even know? Like, why do you choose that? Like, what about that is so intriguing to you that you're so confident about your choice? Because I had no clue what I want to do when I was like, I don't know, 16, 17. And then you come into university again, and I get like, I studied life sciences just because my sister, for example, did like biology. And I was like, okay, yeah, I guess it's like it's like the most obvious path to like going towards like medicine or dentistry or some kind of healthcare job. And I was always shocked how like some people are so, or like at least appear to be so confident about their decisions, because I was not. I made a lot of decisions that I was not fully aware of, or I hadn't fully exploited and researched about. Um, and in university, everybody was like, yeah, just follow your passions, you know? You
Mhm.
just got to go towards your passion. And I was like, what if I don't feel passionate about anything, you know? Like, what if it's just the money, you know? What if I'm a really like, you know, I'm just like, all I care about is the money. I don't have any passion. I haven't found any. And they're like, well, I guess you, and somebody told me, well, I guess you got to explore more things, try out new things, you know? And I feel like a lot of young people that don't know what they want to do, it's out there. You got to reach out more. You got to try new things. You got to try more things and try to find that thing that clicks for you, you know, that thing that
Yeah,
keeps you going, that thing that you want to wake up for every day and keeps you motivated. Not
for
just,
sure.
it's not just it's definitely not just the money, you know, like you're going to be doing this for your whole life. And you got to be sticking to something like that's easy like that. But
That's a good point, man. Because people, like, especially, let's say, just for myself, right? Instead of sometimes going out and exploring what I do like to understand better, I think a lot, you know, and sometimes thinking too much doesn't help at all. You got to start doing, and then
yeah,
along the way, answers are going to show themselves. So it's
yeah,
kind of like what you said about not knowing. So
yeah,
you can't know everything. You'll never know everything. So you just got
yeah.
to start, you know, then,
And I
then
feel
you
like
get,
in this, and especially in the scientific fields, like we're kind of even more scared of that, because like always before doing an experiment, we got to have the hypothesis or like
yeah,
the
yeah,
you know. But like sometimes in your life you don't really need to have the hypothesis, like as long as you know something is safe and you're not going to get hurt by it, like you got to try it out, you know. Like I'm not saying like go and try out everything and waste your time, but like you got to try out something. Like if you haven't tried anything and you feel like you don't have any passion or you don't know enough and you don't feel confident, you got to go out there, you got to put it out, you got to put yourself out and try some things, you know, try new things, not drugs, but new activities, new things that are
I mean,
stimulating to
look,
you, you
man,
know.
we don't
You know
discriminate,
what?
you know, we
It
don't
depends on how you
discriminate.
define drugs, bro. It depends.
Yeah,
Everybody's an addict, bro. Everybody has coffee, bro. You know.
yeah,
But I'm
yeah.
saying, like, um, the thing is, like, I feel like again, I was saying about categorizing. I was listening to this thing about categorization, and it was talking about how we're automated to do this because categorizing things makes it easier for us. It's simpler to be like, oh, I'm a Democrat or a Republican. You know, you can't just say I'm in the middle. You
Yeah,
have to choose. You know, you're just inclined to choose, or else everybody's gonna be like, oh, this guy, he doesn't have a personality. He doesn't have a character. He's not confident. There's something wrong about him. He's not confident enough to choose a side. He can't choose a side, you know? While like what's wrong with being in the middle? And I feel like most of us are in the middle, but society has somehow forced us to believe that like no, we're more towards the left or more towards the right, you
you
know? Like
need to be
yes, we
placed in
might,
a box.
maybe
Yeah,
we're like, why can't we just be a mix of values from both sides, you know? Like, and there's a balance to all of it. Like why, I think it's just, or like even if it's not politics, like in anything else, like For example, it's like when you ask somebody for their number, right? They tell you 647, for example, 575 9606. They say it in grouped numbers. They don't say 64755789. You know, it has to be like 344, or like it has to be a specific categorized kind of pattern for you to
Pattern,
understand it,
yeah.
because categorizing stuff makes things easier for you. And I think that's like a major problem, because when you categorize things and you make them the issues that there, applies to, I think, every.
Hey, Kourosh, one thing I think you
Hello?
just cut off in the last 10 seconds, but it's
Okay.
actually a good point to really say this. This has been the longest episode that we had on this basically podcast. So I think it's a good time to end it and continue our conversation in another episode, because I think we're at the 1
Yeah.
hour mark. Did you hear everything I said? I think you froze up
Awesome.
there.
No. I thought I heard what you said.
Okay.
Nothing. I just said categorization is the bad for you know, figure out like more creative and the in between line kind of stuff. Or less.
Yeah, see, I have your audio now, and your screen paused, so I'm gonna stop the recording as well. But thanks for coming on, man. Really
All right.
appreciate it. You know,
It
it was
was
a
a
good
pleasure talking to you,
conversation.
bro. I enjoyed it a lot, bro. Take care, man.